I am joined by former WEC lightweight champion, former UFC lightweight champion, professional boxer, entrepreneur, all around combat sports legend, Anthony Showtime Pettis. How are you, sir?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Big things going on in the Pettis world. Uh,
Yes.
you just signed on with Karate Combat, taking on Benson Henderson for a trilogy match. KC43 is going down December 15th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, of all things Karate Combat, I did not expect to see Anthony Pettis and I did not expect to see Benson Henderson in the trilogy match. So, how in the world did this come to be?
I think behind the scenes, man, they hired their new president, and he's one of those guys that just understands the playing field of mixed martial arts. I mean, what he has one of the best gyms right now with the Goat Shed, and his promoting skills of just his gym alone is crazy. So I think he had the idea, and then he reached out. He had a couple guys in the background. Dean Tools, a good friend of mine. They bought the idea over to me, and I said I love it. It was like one of those. I'm a free agent. I'm allowed to do karate combat. I'm allowed to box. I'm allowed to do my PFL MMA fighting. So it was just one of those perfect opportunities, and it was in my hometown, well, my new hometown of Las Vegas against Benson Henderson. I was like, yo, I can't say no to that.
Yeah, and you really are just turning into a combat sports legend. I mean, you're doing the pro boxing like Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah,
Not
crazy.
only did you box Roy Jones Jr., you beat Roy Jones Jr. Like how
Yeah,
surreal was that moment?
that was insane, because like I grew up watching Roy Jones. Roy Jones beat Trinidad, and all of us in Puerto Rico, like all the Puerto Rican people, was like, man, thank you so much for beating Roy. I'm like, yeah, he was a little older, but I did it. But the just thinking of that, I'm like, man, it was in my hometown, beating a guy like Roy Jones Jr., like a legend of boxing, and the opportunity that came my way, just because of what I've done in my mixed martial arts career, because Roy fought Mike Tyson before me, and I'm like, yo, there's no way I'm gonna knock this guy out. So let me get smart and use my boxing and my footwork, and I played it perfectly, bro. I think I fought him at 200 pounds too, and I usually fight at my highest weight class is 170, so I was
Mm.
already out of weight class. With 2, 3 weight classes up, and a guy like Roy Jones with all the experience he had was huge.
Did you like not having to cut all that weight though?
Oh man, that was the best, bro. Like I was gaining weight. I got to lift that whole training camp. I was lifting weights. Obviously not like going for like beach muscles, but like I could lift and like get my body feeling good. Because when I do strength and conditioning 4 times a week, I feel the best. Like my body feels the best. So then once I'm cutting weight, I got to pull it back. 2 times a week or 1 time a
Right.
week, cardio base. Then all the injuries hurt and everything feels different. So yeah, I felt great during that camp.
So what weight are you and Bendo fighting at?
171.
Okay, sweet, awesome.
It's
Okay.
170 catch weight because theirs is a 165 weight class. But yeah, he wanted at 170. I was up for either one. I'm like, yeah, I could make because I plan on boxing at 168 for my next one. So I was like, that's already on line to cut that weight. So that's a perfect weight for me.
Awesome. Do you have an opponent already for that boxing match?
I can't announce it yet, but yeah, it will be
Okay.
announced
It's in the
after
That's
this
exciting.
karate combat. Yeah.
That's so exciting. Well, on that Roy Jones card, um, Jose Aldo, he was on the undercard and he was
Yep.
boxing and he was around back in the WEC days, cutting his teeth alongside of you. Um, was there ever a moment in the back in the UFC days where an opportunity to face each other came up?
Yeah, we're gonna fight. Yeah, so like I just beat Donald Cowboy Cerrone, but Ben Henderson was fighting TJ Grant in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I would have had to wait for that fight to happen. So I'm like, yo, I call out Jose Aldo. I just text Data and I was like, hey, bro, I could beat Jose. I could beat Aldo. I think that was the exact text. Like he's good, but I could beat him. And that set that whole thing up. So I fly out to Brazil to go do the press conference. We square off, we do everything. And I rolled with Phil Davis at my coach, Diego Morales. I mean Diego Moraes' gym out in Brazil. And I put Phil in like this weird like knee bar, like kind of a capsizer, but he just straightened his leg out, tore my LCL, and I got pulled out that fight, man. So I was gonna be one of the first guys. I was like the first guy that brought up the double champ thing. Like I moved down to 145 to fight Jose Aldo, then I was gonna move back up to fight Ben Henderson as that champ. But yeah, it didn't happen. God's plan, and Jose Aldo, all respect to that guy, bro. Like he's one of those guys that's pioneered the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing him. I love that he got to box also. That's huge. The paydays are there. I'm like, you guys are legends. Like,
Yeah.
I want nothing but
And
those.
he was young too, you know. He did everything like me. Like we did a lot of stuff in this sport at a young age. So like, you know, I think he's only 36, my same age as me, 35, 36. So you know, there's still gas in our tank, and we still love the competition.
Yeah, I love it. And as someone who's been following you guys' career since back then, I mean, it's just cool to see. Like I love it when y'all are in those kind of matchups. It's really
Yeah.
fun for me. Um, and again, like Aldo was around WEC and the UFC bought them, right? And so you guys were absorbed into the UFC. And PFL just announced that they bought Bellator, where
Mhm.
your brother Sergio competes. So do you have any advice for him and maybe other Bellator fighters who, since you've been through an absorbment and you know what it's like, can you have any advice for those guys that are going through it now?
Yeah, it's gonna be a little different because like when the UFC and WEC merged, the UFC already owned the WEC, but that was their lighter weight classes because UFC only had all the way down to lightweight. They didn't have 45, 35, 25. So when they merged, my weight class was the only one that crossed over the lightweight division. So I was supposed to fight the winner of Frank Yeager and Gray Maynard as the champ of the UFC, WEC, and they fought to a draw, and that's why that fight never happened. And then I ended up fighting Clay Guida. I lost. Benson Henderson worked his way up to a title shot. I worked my way up to a title shot, and then that's how the whole platform laid out. Whereas now in the Bellator PFL merger, it's a totally different format. I think what they're going to be doing too is running Bellator as a separate promotion for the next 2 years, like they said, and
Mm-hmm.
still have their fights, but have like crossover pay-per-view fights where the Bellator fights a UFC a PFL champion. Francis Ngannou is going to be fighting somebody as well. So there's a lot of fun stuff that they could do. But what they did smart was they control a big part of the roster now. By them that they have a huge roster that they get to build with, and PFL is spending a lot of money as well.
And do you think it's better for the sport for Bellator and PFL to be under one roof, or do you think it's better if they're separate entities, or what's
I
better
mean,
for the sport?
it depends on what Bellator was going to do because I know HBO just got out of boxing now. Showtime's out of combat sports, so it's like they really didn't have a home, and PFL is building strong. They're with ESPN, so I think it helps that brand bring together. As far as for the athletes, I mean, PFL's here to stay. Like they're not here. They're not spending the money for no reason. Like they have plans on staying, and they plan on building. They want to be. They don't. They're not even saying like even Don Davis did an interview with Ariel Helwani, and he wasn't saying like, hey, we're trying to build past the UFC. He was like, we're trying to be on the same playing field. When people talk about the mega giants in MMA sports promotions, they're going to talk about both of us. And I was like, that's awesome. So they're gonna have to spend money to get to catch up to the UFC because the UFC controls the whole market right now. But it's interesting to see how it works.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that the PFL allows their fighters to go off and box. Look what Francis just did. It's like
Yeah.
like you guys are pretty much free agents always. You're freelancers. Like
Yeah,
you're
well,
not
we can't
employees.
fight MMA and other promotions, but like even when I signed with the PFL, like they treated me as a business partner. Like that was the cool conversations we had. Like, what are your goals with this? What do you want to do with your career? Like, it wasn't just like, all right, we got to fight this guy during this time and this guy during, like it felt like a different conversation.
And I'm sure that helps the overall relationship. I'm sure, you
Yeah,
know.
most definitely, man. And like their whole goal, like what they're doing is like it's not based around one fighter. It's not based around two fighters. It's based on their whole promotion.
Right.
They're trying to play game, play ball.
Yeah, it's definitely good to see. I like it. I like what they're doing. The $1 million paydays. It's all.
So crazy, bro.
I
To
love
see
it,
these
man.
guys getting those big checks like that, that's life changing money.
Hmm. And now here we are, KC 43. Benson Henderson. I mean, like you said, you guys first fought in the WEC, right? That went 25 minutes. Uh, you took the title off him. All right. You fought the second time, ended in the first round. You submitted him. You took the title off of him. Is this just a stylistic thing, or do you just have his number, or like what's? It
I
seems
don't know,
like
man. That's a good question because Ben's a gangster, man. You see Ben in some wars, bro, and he's fought
yeah,
the who's just like I have, man. He went to Bellator, fought the who's over there as well. Let's just say it was God's plan for those fights, man. Like because going in that WC fight, it was tied. It was 4-4, and like I think until that Showtime kick, that round was pretty close as well. Like it could have went either way. Then I land that Showtime kick, I drop him, I ended with some ground and pound, and that gives me that 3-2 split on getting that belt. And then the UFC fight, you know, I just I just let them body kicks go, bro. Like that's what really like the submission was clean, but like the body kicks I hit him with before that, I hit him with like 5 clean body
In
kicks
a
and
row. Wow,
in a row,
wow,
right?
wow, wow,
Right,
wow.
clean up the center. I think for Ben, the thing that's gonna be different in this one is like I usually fight MMA with my right foot and back because I have my power shots with my right foot and back. But open like karate style and like point style sparring, I fight with my right leg forward. So I think he's going to see a big mixture of both styles of both matchups in this one. So I'm excited to see how he adjusts to me fighting him southpaw and throwing the kicks that I throw.
That is intriguing. And one thing I will say about Bendo, he was ahead of his time when it came to the calf kicks, right? Like he was doing calf kicks before the rest of the world caught on to how effective they were.
Yep.
And in karate combat, you're not allowed to kick to the thigh. That's just
Yep.
part of the rule set, but the calf is fair game. So, what are some of the things you've been doing to kind of hone in on the specific skill set for karate combat?
Honestly, I've been dealing because I live in Vegas. I've been dealing with calf kicks. All these guys do calf kicks out here, bro. A lot of them are just like, just doing calf kicks. So like when we fought in the UFC, he threw it inside low kick, but he threw it really low to like my shin area where I was like, I'm not even gonna check this because it doesn't make sense to check. And it did some damage, bro. It tore my PCL in that one round in the UFC fight. And I knew from then and there, I'm like, these kicks actually work. Like these kicks can do some damage. Cause like even if he didn't hurt his leg, because usually you don't kick someone's shin, like you're trying to avoid their shin.
Right, right.
So I think him doing that and that first fight already put me on game. And that was like I was 10 years ago already when that happened. So I feel like I had a lot of time to play around with those calf kicks. And the good thing about this setup is like most guys try to do calf kicks for damage, but also sweeps. Like if he can sweep and like get you on the ground, then he can get control and positions. Or that's not going to be an aspect for me. I'm gonna be on my feet, in and out. I'm not gonna sit there and fight him like a Muay Thai guy and have to stay in his face. Like I get to move in, I get to move out, I get to jump, I get to spin, I get to run off that wall. So I feel like that
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that takes away that because I'm not gonna be stationary. Like I'm not gonna be stationary in his face. That's kind of where the low calf kick comes from. They're trying to open up a striking exchange so you can counter. So you do low calf kick, so the guy either checks or he stays. Then you can put your hands on him, or you can go for the double leg takedown or sweep. Where that's not part of the rules here. And the cool thing about them taking away low leg calf kicks is that's how you beat a karate guy. That's how you beat a traditional martial artist is low kicks. Like my coach Duke Rufus came from open style kickboxing tournaments like
Mm-hmm.
ISK. His brother Rick Rufus lost to a Muay Thai guy. And that was the blueprint, like of how. That's why I beat Wonder Boy Thompson. So I understood like, when a guy kicks with a traditional guy kicks with either leg, you just chase that leg back with the same low kick, and it brings your stance closer and closer
Mm-hmm.
and closer.
Mm-hmm.
That calls that knockout to happen. So
Yeah.
the way I think that's why they took out the calf kick because it make Muay Thai guys win all these fights.
Right, right. Yeah. And it makes me think of what Shogun did to Machida in their
Oh
two
yeah,
fights. He lit his legs up, doing exactly what you just said.
I did to Wonder Boy Thompson, man.
Yeah, same,
He
same.
busted me up. He was longer than me. He had the range, but once I started landing those low kicks, his stance got a little closer and allowed that
Mm-hmm.
knock.
Yeah, and like that knockout, it was a Superman punch, wasn't it?
Yeah, off the
Ultimately,
cage, yeah, bounce off the
yeah.
cage.
So like you do things like that, the Showtime kick, or even like the way you set up your submissions. They're always so crafty and so clever. Um, like what are some you already have to have this in your mind. Like what are some of the ways you can use that 45-degree embankment? Because you were one
Well,
of the first people to use the cage. We need to see some funky stuff off that
yeah,
embankment.
bro. I mean, basically anything I could do off the cage, I got way more leap because I now have an angle, right? So now I'm not. It's not a straight on object where I gotta like figure out how to get to my hip on it. Like I get to actually spring off of this thing. So I mean, from jump spin kicks, just the thing that not worried about, but it's gonna be new to me is like backing up into that. So if I let him run me down, and I'll end up on my back, and you're in a weird
Mm-hmm.
spot. There's not much you can do from there but up kick and try to sweep if you can. But like I've never been in that position yet, and that's what I got Duke flying out here to practice that to figure out let's figure out some moves to make that not happen. But only the more time I get and the more experience I get in there, the more stuff I get to throw.
Yeah, that's man. Shout out to Duke Rufus, by the way. My Muay Thai coach Harvey Grassy came from Duke Rufus.
Oh,
So like
dope.
that's the lineage. So
He's a great coach, man. Duke understands. Like he's not a coach for everybody, but he understands traditional martial arts so well and Muay Thai so well. He can put them all together, and that's what's dangerous for MMA.
total genius, total genius. So
Sure.
I know you said you have a boxing match lined up, but as far as karate combat goes, is this going to be like a one and done, or do you think you'll have other matches, other opportunities with the
I
promotion?
hope not. I hope not, because like I mean, this wasn't even on my radar at first. You know, when this opportunity came up, I was like, it's perfect for me. You know, like and man, honestly, the training camps are way easier than doing MMA training camp because MMA you got to worry about wrestling, you got to do Muay Thai, you got to do boxing, and then you got to put them all together, Jiu-Jitsu. So like so many different levels and practices that you got to do. Is whereas right now I'm just focused solely on striking. You know, I'm getting in striking shape. It feels like even like the boxing camp, like my boxing camp, I got to do a lot of sparring because I wasn't doing 3 or 4 different martial arts. I was doing just one martial art.
You think we've seen the end of Anthony Pettis and arts that contain grappling?
No, not at all. Yeah, I still have a PFL contract that we'll be doing something with the PFL 2024 as well, man. So I'll be all
Oh
over the
wow.
place.
Awesome. I love it. I love it.
Uh,
Do you care who you fight, or are you at a
yeah, I
place
definitely care. I
like
definitely care.
only legends? Like you've proved so much in this sport, you have nothing to prove left. You think you have to earn the right to fight Anthony Pettis, so to speak. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I think that's a level of that. But there's like Cedric Doumbé, that's another guy. It's like he's like, man, that's a great fight, good kickboxer. Like was I would love something like that. I want the big fights, the ones that make me excited to train. Because like no lie, like the PFL the tournament format, I was definitely excited my first time doing it. But the guys that I was fighting, I was like, and I wasn't talking shit. I wasn't like looking past them. I was just like, man, like they shouldn't have been fighting me at that time frame. It's just the
Right.
format that allowed it to happen. So, and I think Don Davis just did an interview at Ariel Helwani, and he talked about it. He's like, yo, the tournament style for Pettis wasn't the best setup. Like he's a 2 time a year type guy, and he's correct. Like 2 MMA fights, that's probably the most I would do.
Right. No, that's definitely fair. And I guess you another good point with as far as Bendo goes. Like you've beat him twice. You've beat him everywhere on the ground, standing up. You've dropped him several times. You hit him with Showtime kicks. Like what what do you have to do to prevent yourself from being overconfident?
I'm not even gonna be confident, man. I'm gonna go out there and just like be free. If as long as I'm free, I'm not like thinking about the past. Like the past is the past. You're only as good as your last fight, and that's just how MMA works. And he's been fighting. He's just fought a killer in Bellator over there for that title shot.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
he's been at the top level still, and he's not like now that he's focused on grappling, he's still training. I seen him, grapple, and he's still in great shape. I just got to be smart, and this rule set just favors me honestly. Just the style of fighting and the style of point scoring I did my whole life. Like I have a lot of experience over here.
Oh, absolutely. Well, since you have fought everybody, you have one of the most impressive resumes you'll ever find. Is there like one matchup that got away from you that you always wanted, but it never got booked?
Conor McGregor, that was one that was like he was right after me. It was just right. He blew
Yeah.
up after my little shitty downslide of my career. But Conor McGregor would be a fun one. Charles Oliveira, I think when I submitted him, that would like Tony Ferguson, we had a great fight. I broke my hand on that one. So there's a bunch of those like little ones where I'm like, yeah, I wish I can get that back before it's all over. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, especially, and that's another thing I love about all these different promotions, and whether it be boxing, karate combat, or whatever, you have a chance for these legends to revisit some old matches and
Yeah,
have them in a different format. And
it's
that's
fun to watch too, bro. Like no matter what, like even that, Mike Tyson was Roy Jones Jr. Like it's legends
yeah,
to watch that I watched growing up.
exactly. Well, you want to mention APFC real quick, gaining some traction.
Yes.
When did you decide? You know what? I need to get in on this. I need my own promotion. I need to be out there doing this also.
I always had the plan to do it. It was just I didn't have the time. When I was really chasing these belts and like chasing the goals, like where PFL gave me the opportunity to have a whole bunch of months off. Like when I fought the PFL, the first 3 months was training. You would have your couple fights back to back, and as far as you got in the tournament, that's how many you had time off after that. So that year off, well, 6 months I had off in the PFL is kind of when I really went to work on APFC, got the legs behind it, figure out how to make it make sense, got the UFC Fight Pass deal. And that kind of just gave me the ability to do it. And I'm doing it well, bro. Like the APFC 9 was a great show. Like I had my biggest turnout, my biggest gate. Had some legends in the house. I had a bunch of people that all came out to Milwaukee to support. And it's cool to see like these guys aren't charging me to come do, one-off sign-offs. They're just coming to show up and support. So I'm getting a lot of support from the MMA community.
It's incredible, man. I love to see it. I absolutely love to see it. And that's the thing, like prize fighting, you got to get in and get out, right? But
Yeah.
you got to have other hustles going on at the same time. I feel like that's the one of the hardest lessons for the younger fighters to learn is having more than one hustle and really cashing in
Got
on
to.
what you
Yeah, you
build.
gotta have more source of income, man. Like, cause like if you're fighting off that one source of income, you take a lot of fights that you don't need to take, or you take a fight because you need the money, and those are the worst ones. And those are the ones that make you fall out of love with the game because you're like, yo, I was feel forced to fight, and you had to do it because you needed the money, or you needed to re-sign a contract or get out of a contract. So it's one of those games where you got to have these side hustles, and you got to have the ability to make multiple sources of income.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like, PFL is letting you be a prize fighter, right? You can go do boxing, you can go do all these other things. Do you think you'll ever see the day where the UFC follows suit and like
Nah, I don't
allows?
think so. Totally different business model, man. And I think the reason why they got to where they're at is because the way they run their business, man. And Dana White is a workhorse. I have all the respect for him in the world, bro. Like whatever he's doing, he's all in on it. And I'm kind of like that too. I'm like one of those persons. Like if I'm thinking about something, I gotta get it done. Like I can't just like let it sit there. And to see the way he's running his business and to see what he brought it up to, like without the UFC, I don't think none of these conversations, this conversation might not be happening. Like
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
he,
100%.
he started this all, so I got mad respect for him, and I think the way he runs his business model, he'll be a leader for a long time.
You think we'll ever see Anthony Pettis in slap fighting or what is it called? Power slap?
Nah, that's entertaining to me, but no, I can't let somebody smack me without trying to hit him back. Like I'm like, yeah,
Right.
I get hit, I gotta hit you back.
Right. Like back in the day, you slap a man, there was a duel afterwards. There was a
Yeah, yeah,
gunfight.
yeah.
Someone had to go.
But it is entertaining. I'll tell you that, bro. I went to
Sure.
slap fights, and he got all of these YouTuber guys and the social media streamer guys that all show up and support, and I think it's blowing up like crazy.
No, it really is. Well, you got any sponsors or people you'd like to give a special shout out or thank you to?
Just my family, man, my wife that allows me to do, what I'm doing, my two daughters that, are very supportive of my career and, allow me to do this. And shout out to Sergio. Sergio's lost his, Bellator title. He's in one of
Sure.
those spots where I've been there before. It's part of the fight game, but, he'll be back. He'll keep his head up high and we'll get him back on track.
Awesome. Well, how can people follow you on your journey for the one or two people who are not already following you? How can they, what are your social media, your Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz?
Yeah, all my stuff is Showtime Pettis. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find me on Showtime Pettis. My fight show, APFC MMA on Instagram. And make sure you guys are tuning in. Karate Combat, December 15th. Me and Ben do it again. And they got a gangster card too, man. I got Sam Alvey fighting for a title shot. They got Raymond Daniels coming back. So it's gonna be a great fight. And it's free on YouTube. So if you ain't here in Vegas, make sure you're watching on YouTube.
Oh, it's going to be an absolute banger. I know I'll be there. I'll be live in person. Well, Anthony Showtime Pettis, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for
Appreciate
being such a great ambassador for the sport and putting on so many incredible fights and being one of my favorite fighters of all time. I wish you nothing but the most success in everything you do.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.